So yes, we're doing the Ray-Ban Meta glasses again, and yes, it's a gimmick, but it's for a point. These are in the real world. This is consumer technology. They read you your text messages in your ear while you're in a meeting, while everyone else is checking their phone and looking at their smartwatch. They answer your questions through an AI bot. A little bit of a delay, but we know those things will get better. You can imagine what that would do for a consumer if we adopted cutting-edge technology in our industry. For a renter to go into an apartment and walk around and just look, not even think about it, just look at the apartment, and to go home and look at their furniture in their current place and be able to see what would fit. Because we know these things exist already. The technology today exists for a simple video to give you a 3D model, to give you a floor plan, to tell you exactly what items would fit in which rooms. We already have this technology, not necessarily integrated well in organized real estate. You can imagine a buyer walking into a property, walking through an open house, again, just looking around the room, and then going home and maybe booting up the IKEA app and having those measurements ready to go and be able to select the kind of furniture that they could use in that room without thinking about it. Brokers and agents could walk through properties and get these 3D models, these floor plans, valuations. Valuations, we know, online valuations are worth a little bit, but not until you see the interior of the property. You've heard Zillow can't smell the cat. Zillow's got great valuations, but couldn't they have better valuations if they could see the inside of the property as well? It could be more than just our brokers. Our inspectors, our appraisers could have these records of the property that they don't have to write down in little notes, but they can actually have video to complement those reports for our people. There's a lot of exciting opportunities. The technology is real right now, but not so much in our industry. We've got some great software companies here who build good technology, and organized real estate does a great job transactionally. We do a great job of making sure that consumers and brokers with their associations and MLSs can do advocacy and transactions. But we're not actually that great in inviting new Proptech companies into the industry. We all know our businesses work well in organized real estate, 1.5 million realtors who would say, my business works great. I have systems, they're fine. I don't want them to change. We've talked a lot about the pain and discomfort of change in the industry. 500 MLSs. Most staff people would say, my MLS works great. Day to day, the operations work great for our brokers. But if you're a Proptech company, a startup coming into this industry, it doesn't look great. It looks like chaos. 500 different processes, forms, websites, administrators, committee structures, timelines, data sets, data definitions, disclaimers, the size of the font you need to put on a website. We make it really hard for Proptech startups to come into our industry and bring us the innovative technology that we want. We want that for our consumers, for our customers, for our brokers and agents. But I think you'll agree with me that we make it pretty hard for a company that wants to scale across markets, 5, 10, 300 MLSs. So that's why I'm excited about the sessions we have coming up here. If you looked at what we do at RESO, data standards, we do really well. You do really well. Data dictionary, web API, we do really well. But if you look at our incorporation, we're incorporated for, we talked about our mandate, data standards and processes. That's what our incorporation says. We do data standards really well. As an industry, we don't do streamlined processes very well, in general, from the perspective of a young, new Proptech company trying to bring us new innovative technology. It looks like chaos to them. And that's actually also part of our mission, to bring order out of chaos. It's literally what we do at RESO, is bring order out of chaos to streamline and create competition. So really excited to have Bill Fowler lead a couple sessions here. You all know Bill. He's a great connector, well respected in the industry, but can also ask the hard questions that might make us a little bit uncomfortable, and really excited to have this environment for young, new, innovative Proptech companies to come to RESO and to challenge what our business models and our processes are in particular. So please welcome Bill and our panelists.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. How was the Bloody Mary bar? Because all we needed was more drinks, right? Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, James. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity to talk about what Proptech companies are looking for from MLSs. It's an organized way for us to answer some big topic questions and also dig into some details around not so much, I guess, pain points necessarily, but just maybe best practices, recommendations from your perspective, your experiences, both high and low, and gain a little bit of a community kind of discussion around how we can bring the best products to our members. So if you would, maybe start with you, Alex. Just introduce yourself, introduce your company,
Sure.
and how long you've been doing this and that kind of thing.
All right, been doing this for 23 years. My mom was a realtor, so that's how I got dragged into this game. And I'm the CEO of RealGrader. What we do is we measure, manage, and maximize digital presence for real estate agents. And our latest, most popular product is our digital business card, specifically for real estate. Deals with real estate compliance, deals with creating the best version of a digital business card that agents can put out to the world and share information and get other people's information. And we have the ability to pre-create those for an entire MLS or an association. And we just did that for Miami and for California.
CRMLS.
What's that?
The California Association?
California Association.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm Aaron. I'm Director of Sales at CubiCasa. Simply put, we're the floor plan company. We can smell the cat, as Sam mentioned. So we capture interior property data and can push it out in data files, and then also into simple 2D marketing floor plans as well. My first RESO was in Boise, but before that I was in real estate photography and did that.
Nice. I am Heather Elias. I'm the VP of Real Estate at Pearl Certification. Been there full-time since April, so fairly new to it. Pearl does third-party energy efficiency certifications of residential homes that include a turnkey marketing package for agents that helps them get that information into the MLS appropriately using greenfields and such, which creates a lovely API of rich data that could enrich the MLS further. So, and while I've only been at Pearl since April, I'm 20 years in the real estate industry, and it's, I think, my second RESO.
Hey everyone, I'm James Rogers, co-founder and CEO of BHR. And first, Sam, thanks for putting us right after the Bloody Mary bar. I was telling Bill earlier that it's not every day you get to speak at a panel that has a 2-drink minimum. We built something called a Real Report. You can kind of think of it as an AI supercharged Carfax for homes. We partnered with over 30 different data providers, some of whom are in this room. And we provide that for every home in the country with an AI interface on top of it where you can actually ask any question about the home and get an answer in real time. People use it for research and diligence, but also lead generation. The reason we built this is because I've been in the space for a bit. This is my first RESO because and I'm happy to be here. It's been great so far. I started a real estate brokerage before this, or tech-enabled brokerage, building a lot of software in that. So I've been in the space for a while. For a long time before that, I was starting other various software companies. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so in your, Heather, you're not new to this, and but your introduction to the MLS world is somewhat fresh. And you really have experience, I guess. All of you have experience in real estate, but the MLS environment is a wholly different beast. And so as you're selling a product or you're trying to provide a service, there's the bottom-up approach, which is, Alex, you're very familiar with, which is the, handing out the swag at the conferences and so forth, and doing the booth thing, which is maybe gratifying in the moment, but really doesn't allow you to scale. So then you go to the MLS. I mean, the big picture worry here is that you just can't sell individual products to people and make any money over time. So you go to the MLS and you expect this kind of a scaled experience, or you bring in, as a partner, in a top-down approach, and then a hunting license kind of a thing, which is very popular now with MLSs. I think gone are the days of the price per user per month, unless it's a very specific piece of technology. So what you're all kind of endeavoring to do is to deliver a service that would be useful to a subset of the membership, not necessarily everybody. Maybe that would be an exception in your case, Aaron. So you had a certain set of assumptions. I mean, you have experience in real estate, so then you walk in the door of an MLS, and what were some of those assumptions that you felt at that stage? How did you think it was going to go?
I mean, I can start if you want. Having a ton of history and connections and network within the real estate industry, primarily on the brokerage and association side, I have to say that it's been quite a learning curve for me on how much less I understood the MLS side than I thought I did. I mean, rudimentary understanding, of course, but there's so much nuance and depth that I think that was actually, I won't say shocking, but definitely surprising for me.
Yeah, I think for me, coming in from a front-end side, of marketing side and photography earlier in my career, and then into kind of more of a middle space of data, and also still the marketing side with floor plans, I think, selling direct to brokerages was clear. The consumer was really close. The agents were right there. They then use you or not. Coming into MLS, it felt like a gatekeeper of freedom. And then once you realize that they have to manage the tension between the data that they have, the regulations that they live in, and then how do you fit in this mold, when there's hundreds of other people calling them every single day to get something from them, it really changed my perspective to understand what it means to lead or work at an MLS, because I just assumed it would have been easy. To just call in and say, hey, you guys want some sales stuff? And they're like, well, hold on, what are you and why and what do you need? And I think I wasn't prepared for that initially, but learned that in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I was super excited because I was like, the list is so small. When you're looking at 1.6 million realtors, and then it's like, oh wait, there's 522 or 600 MLS and associations. How many conversations is that? Let's get started.
Yeah.
But then each conversation is like an entirely different story.
Yeah, do you remember the exact moment when your dreams were crushed on that?
Yeah, it's probably at least on the 10th iteration of the same thing with no results.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's a really good point, and just for all of you who are listening to this kind of dialogue for the first time, the idea that Proptech companies, all they need is, and people come to the consultant realm and are like, I just need Bob Hale to answer my emails. If I can just get a demo with XYZ, then we're all going to be buying sailboats, and it just doesn't work that way. And there's a strenuous vetting process. I mean, James, you've been through this over the last 12 months or so. How did you view the vetting process is interesting, and the conversations that you have. I know you've had several demos that went incredibly well, and so you hang up the phone and you think, high fives all around, and then silence. So can you maybe give a little context in that?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting and a quick education. I think what's been probably most, I don't know about surprising, but at least instructive is, obviously there's a ton of institutional knowledge and battle scars in this room from what's gone wrong. And what I've experienced and been sort of surprised by is, when I'm typically doing business with a counterparty, again, people in this room, like I said, we work with over 30 different data providers. Usually I'll meet somebody at one of these things, and within probably 1 to 3 months, we've got the deal done. And that's because we both mutually agree that we're going to default, but we're going to assume that we can trust each other in this relationship. We'll obviously protect each other in the contract. We need to make sure our interests are preserved. But we move forward very quickly because we say, look, we both want this. We both want better things for the industry, for our members, for our agents, for our team. And so you can move very quickly. I think what's been somewhat surprising is, again, I mentioned earlier, it's my first RESO, and again, it's been great, but I think what's been surprising is if you haven't been to 75 conference happy hours with somebody, then you don't already have that trust, which is not my typical experience in sort of the non-MLS world. So you meet somebody and say, hey, we're gonna assume that we want to do trustful business together, and let's move forward. And I think the other big surprise has been that board meetings happen once a month where decisions are made, so that's a little different for me. But everybody I've met that runs an MLS is a thoughtful, innovative, interesting, really sharp person. And I know all of you want the best for the industry and your membership, but it has been, again, as a relative newcomer to this room, it has been somewhat surprising that I think because people have been burned before, the assumption to start with is, how could you burn me? And not assume, hey, you're probably not going to do that. Let's protect ourselves so that you can't. but I'm going to assume that you will. And then after, again, that 50th drink at the 15th happy hour, you're just like, okay, well, now I like you, and I'm going to assume that you won't do that.
Yeah, that's, the assumption of trust, I think, is probably the largest thing that you walk into a conversation with, because you have a great one-on-one rapport with someone and you build this relationship. And then you start the red line process and things just go completely off the rails. And I'm not saying that deals don't eventually get done. They almost always do when there's mutual interest. It's just there's this bureaucratic, and I guess bottom lining it is there's a lot of headlines over the last 18 to 24 months of MLSs with embarrassing situations based on the adoption or the having technology gone awry, which is obviously a very high-risk thing. So your assumption is that you're providing value, and especially in this environment where I think all of you provide metrics back into the MLS, which is a huge talking point now. You're not just taking, you're giving. And again, the assumption is that you can be trusted, and you have paperwork to back that up. Yeah. Okay. So thinking about this, from a big picture standpoint, and we can criticize the process all day long. It's not going to change anytime soon. But what would be kind of you pointed to success stories or maybe situations that you've had that have gone very well that you can kind of point to and say, hey, man, I wish they were all like this.
I think for us, it's been an interesting last year. I mean, everything around, there's been lawsuits around floor plans in different parts of the country. Luckily, we're on the right side of that at this point, and those are all closed. But I think the word data scares a lot of people. And I think once we have that in person or that phone conversation, to say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, here's what we want to accomplish, and here's what then ends up back in your hands, has been really helpful. My boss, our president, Jeff, has picked up the phone and called numerous MLS executives and just said, hey, here's what we're thinking. Is that in line with what you guys are thinking? And that personal touch has been the number one reason for our ability to have a lot of these open partnerships, because there's just, I don't know if I want to call it fear, but there's that hesitancy of what could happen if I do anything, and how am I going to be protected legally, and then also relationally, how do we just make sure that this is a benefit for the industry long term, not just in 2023.
I'm having some great experiences. Miami was awesome. They adopted really quickly. Teresa uses our product, so she gives me feedback on the product. But then what I love is that she comes up with creative ways to get more adoption. Like just this week, she had a meeting with all of her 126 leaders, and we had QR codes and digital cards for every single one of them at the event so they could exchange info really quickly. That was her idea, right? So it's like there's so much collaboration available and so many ways to adopt. And then California, immediately started doing marketing with us. So I'm having great experiences other than, it takes time to build that relationship. We've been with Miami for a year, but it's a long game, right? And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. When you talk about the process, I think there's some improvements in the sense that just having a meeting, there was one MLS organization where I applied online through a form. It's like, why isn't there a standardized form for tech companies like us to say, here's my product video, here's my revenue numbers, here's my client adoption numbers, here's all the questions that you all care about in one standard form, and that way I can just apply 100 times or 600 times, and then if you like it, you'll set a meeting. You don't like it, don't set a meeting, and I'll follow up.
Yeah.
Right?
There seems to be a lot of friction. Sorry, go ahead.
I can't say a part of that enough in that I mentioned earlier, I've met so many really sharp people with incredible ideas. I also mentioned institutional knowledge. So we have countless things that we've integrated in our product that came from people in this room where they said, hey, could you build this? And we're small and quick. Just, I think probably a lot of people on the stage could move as quickly as we could. And we've had times where somebody has an idea on a Monday for us and we build it, we launch it on Tuesday but those ideas have come from people in this room where they said, hey, we hear from our membership that they need this or they would adopt that. Again, institutional knowledge, what buttons they click. So when you've said, hey, if we can put a button here, we can work with this partner to make that happen, we've had incredible success. And I think that's something that I want to make sure everybody in this room understands how much we all value your feedback on our products. And I know plenty of you are not afraid to give it, but I think for the young, scrappy startups that want to move fast, I think I probably can speak for everybody on the stage that we tremendously value your input and want to build for you. So we've had a huge amount of success for that and I know I really have appreciated that.
So you have a room full of MLS people, and we've highlighted, it's the bureaucratic, the process, the meeting every month, and the 90-day window to get anything done, which is lightning fast in this industry. Like we are well aware of the problem. If there's anything that you can point to in the process, let's say that MLSs and even MLSs that have biz dev positions, people who are tasked specifically to go out and find new products, it doesn't really speed up the process as maybe it implies it could. So there's the shopping, which is we're all very good at. There's the demos. There's the lobby bar conversations that we really excel at. It's the implementation, and then there's the adoption, which is where the friction really begins to slow down. Even once you get a deal done, you're looking at 10% adoption in some cases is an outstanding victory, and in some cases, in some people's eyes, it's a huge failure. So, is there any advice that you would give to you have the floor, literally have the stage to say how these things could be solved?
I was having a conversation, and not to dominate here, but I was having a really interesting conversation earlier where I think that one thing, again, I know everyone's process is going to be different, but I think one of the things that I think may be useful is empowering tech committees with decision-making power. If they could say, even at some small, experimental pilot stage, to say, combining that with the idea that probably most people in this room that run or work at a Proptech company would get on a plane to come spend that board meeting with you in person, because I know in this post-COVID world we're all used to a 30-minute Zoom call. But if that's the first introduction that your board is getting to a new product, they're going to say, okay, great, let's talk about it, let's think about it, and understanding the process, it might be another month before you can have the next conversation about it. But I know, speaking for myself, I would get on that plane and spend an entire day with you to go back and forth and see if we could get there 3 months faster. And I think if you could marry that with empowering the tech committee to actually make at least, again, experimental decision making, that I think, at least from my, again, relative newcomer's perspective, I think that would make things move faster.
I think for the decision-making process, it is relatively predictable, so I don't necessarily have a ton of feedback on that. What we get through the tech committee to the board, to the decision red lines that we've done is, like you said, not going to change tomorrow. But I think what you talked about, the adoption phase, we've had some really incredible partners just come alongside us and show us that their model of adoption and how they've learned to help their members and subscribers adopt things is really helpful, because coming in, I'm sure we thought we were the smartest person in the room, and we can tell you how to get our product adopted. We're really smart at marketing, and then learning from some of these MLSs have really shown us, that there's just an incredible way to do this, and there's also a way to just plop it in front of people, and then you get 2% adoption, and everyone's like, great, we did it. And it honestly doesn't matter what size the MLS is. It is, depending upon their leadership and team, we've learned from some of the smaller regional ones have really helped us out in learning how to just navigate the adoption phase.
Yeah.
I would say too that it's interesting bringing a different kind of data set into the industry that isn't very well represented from the bottom up on the agent side, right? If we're talking about energy efficiency and high performing home features, which is what I work within. That having initial conversations to kind of gauge where an MLS's membership is around some of this, how much is this baked into what you're doing already? Because depending where we're talking about in the country, there are wildly different levels of awareness or usage of greenfields and things like that. That the folks within the MLS that I need to have the conversations with to kind of brainstorm around that, to iterate on it, or make changes that are beneficial, are not necessarily the same people that I need to talk to on the technical side to get things done. So it's a really tough thing to navigate for a company that is young to this process, and it doesn't seem there's no cut and paste from MLS to MLS to do it the same way each way to provide value. And I guess maybe that's the harder part, some transparency around how to navigate that.
Yeah, a lot of what you've just said is based on, number one, the relationship. And I think if there's something that I have repeated many, many times over the last year or so, it's they're not buying the product, they're buying you. I mean, you have to get on that plane. Yeah. Ultimately, a 30-minute phone call is not going to do it. You have to gain the trust of the key decision maker. In your case, it was Teresa, who has the power to wave a magic wand, and suddenly you're there. And well, she's earned that. And the decision-making process, I mean, if there's anything that I would point to, it would be governance. Absolutely 100%, we are all run like nonprofits, and we are technology companies. And that's where the friction lies. I don't think there's any product on the stage, or any product, but very few products here that would be considered high risk. And these are add-ons. These are benefits. These are clear and obvious benefits, and the friction is absolutely out of control. Yeah. And we have a job to do. Your job is to pilot program, is to talk to the right person at the right time, make this absolutely fall down easy as far as adoption goes. And even despite those efforts, even despite getting on the plane, sometimes these things just take time. And I think from a Proptech company's perspective, you have to learn. You can't have a 6-month burn. You better have a 6-year burn because that's what you're looking at. I mean, any context around that?
I mean, one thing I want to just mention is I think it's hard to get everybody's schedules on the same page. So from the getting in front of people's point of view, getting in front of the boards and the committees, a video pass through, like a 3-minute video proposal that can be passed on and forwarded on for people to watch at their leisure. Somebody brought that up to me. I thought that was a genius idea. And from an adoption standpoint, I think it's really about looking at who are the heavy influencers within that MLS organization and getting them to try and use the product and give feedback on the product before bringing it to the masses. That's one thing. And there was another thought I had, but it'll come back to me.
No, that's all right. How are we doing on time, Sam? We're good? I can't see anything. The red light is blinking. That means that I should probably shut up now, right? Okay. Okay, good. Well, hey, thanks all of you for being here and your candor. Really appreciate your time. I get to stay here. You get to leave.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Thanks, Bill.